They moved into my house while I was still on vacation. They labelled my bedroom for themselves and left me the smallest room downstairs, and my own son stood there, holding the clipboard. They thought I wouldn't make a scene. They were right. I came home early. Before I tell you what happened next, if you believe respect matters at any age, I'd be honoured if you subscribed and tell me where you're listening from. Stories like this aren't about revenge. They're about remembering who we are. I'm 74 years old, a widow for 11 of those years. My name is Helen. I live in a 2-story brick house in Portland. The steps creak when you lean too hard. The porch catches the last light of day. Every evening, I sit there with tea. Chamomile. No sugar. My husband used to complain about that. Tea should taste like something, he'd say. I'd tell him peace doesn't need flavour. After he passed, the house changed. Not empty. Empty is when nothing was ever there. This house still holds him. His reading glasses remain on the nightstand. Some people say that's unhealthy. I say love doesn't expire neatly. Mornings are slow now, stretching by the window, watering roses he planted in '98. I talk to them sometimes. They've survived storms, too. My son Daniel lives across town, 42, always in motion. His wife, Lauren, is efficient, organised, careful with her tone. In the early years, she was sweetness itself, lemon bars on Sundays. Mum, you must be tired. Little hugs before leaving. I felt chosen. When Daniel lost his job years ago, I covered rent. When daycare crushed their budget, I stepped in quietly. Temporary, they said. Family looks after family. That's what I believed. After my husband died, helping them made me feel less invisible. I wired money for their first car. Lauren cried. Called me a blessing. Blessing. It's a dangerous word when you need to feel needed. Over time, the thank yous shortened. Then they disappeared. Requests didn't. Mum, can you help just this once? Just once became a pattern. I kept saying yes. It felt kinder than saying no. Lauren began commenting on the house. It's so big for one person. You shouldn't be climbing ladders at your age. What if you fell? Concern sounds a lot like calculation when you hear it twice. I noticed the way she scanned rooms, measured corners with her eyes, but I told myself I was imagining it. 2 years ago, I paid off the mortgage. I stood in the kitchen alone holding the final receipt. We did it, I whispered. I meant my husband and me. That house was proof. Proof we built something that lasted. Life was quiet, predictable, lonely sometimes, but steady. Tuesdays at the library, Saturdays baking bread. I didn't need excitement. I needed peace. When Daniel mentioned visiting more often, I smiled. I pictured laughter in the kitchen again. I didn't realize I was picturing something else entirely. That summer, I booked a 5-day trip to Maui. My first real vacation in years. Daniel insisted. Lauren helped pack. At the airport, she hugged me tight. Don't worry about a thing, she said. It sounded generous. Now I hear it differently. The night before I left, I walked through every room slowly, checked the locks twice, touched the banister, paused in my bedroom doorway. It felt steady, solid, mine. I didn't know it then. But that quiet was the last untouched peace I would feel for a long time. It was the 3rd evening in Maui. The sky was orange and forgiving. The ocean rolled in slow, steady breaths. I remember thinking, maybe I should travel more. Then my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front hallway. I smiled at first. Probably the cat sitter. I opened the camera feed casually. Then I stopped breathing. Lauren stood in my foyer. Her mother beside her. Her father near the staircase, not visiting, measuring. Her father pulled a tape measure across my living room wall. Lauren pointed toward the stairs. Her mother opened my kitchen cabinets like she was checking inventory. I didn't gasp. I didn't panic. I went very still. Lauren laughed. Not nervously, confidently. "Once everything's in, she won't make a scene," she said. "She hates conflict." Her mother nodded. "We'll take the master upstairs." The master. My bedroom. The words didn't hit fast. They sank. Lauren continued. "By the time she flies home Sunday, it'll be done." Done. Like I was an obstacle to move around. Her father gestured toward my husband's reading chair. "We can put our cabinet there." That chair still held the shape of him. I turned up the volume. Movers were inside now, carrying boxes labeled Master Bedroom. Then Daniel walked into frame. My son, hands in his pockets, watching. Lauren handed him a clipboard. He scanned it, nodded. I zoomed in. A floor plan, rooms labeled neatly. Mom and Dad, Master. Office. Craft room. And at the bottom, downstairs, guest, Helen. Guest. In the house I paid off. In the room where I buried a husband. Lauren's mother lifted one of my dinner plates. "These are outdated. We'll donate them." Donate. 30 years of Christmas dinners. I felt my chest tighten. But not with tears. With understanding. This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. I lowered the phone slowly. The Maui sunset blurred into nothing. For years, I had covered their rent, their emergencies, their shortfalls. Over $60,000. I never asked for repayment, but I assumed gratitude lived somewhere inside that. I reopened the feed. Lauren stood in the center of my living room, confident, certain I would adjust, because I always had. And then she said something that changed everything. "She'll be happier downstairs anyway. Less stairs." Happier. That word did it. I didn't feel rage. I felt finished. I opened my airline app, booked the next red-eye home. 4 hours later, I was folding clothes into my suitcase. My hands were steady, but something inside me had locked into place. For years, I confused kindness with surrender. That night, watching them replace me, I didn't feel explosive anger. I felt something quieter, a door closing inside my chest. They thought I wouldn't make a scene. They were right. I wouldn't. I would make a decision, and that decision would begin the moment I landed. The flight home felt longer than it was. 5 hours in darkness. Cabin lights dimmed. People slept with open mouths and folded arms. I stared at the seat in front of me. Then I opened my banking app. Month by month. Year by year. 2,000 for their wedding venue. 3,000 for car repairs. 800 a month for daycare. Emergency dental work. A late mortgage payment. Groceries. Just until Friday. I added it carefully. $61,320. The number didn't shock me. What shocked me was how quietly I had given it, without once asking, "Is this respect?" I leaned back and closed my eyes. Lauren's voice replayed. "She won't make a scene." That's how they saw me. Soft, predictable, manageable. When we landed, it was still dark. I rented a car, drove 2 blocks from my house, parked near the maple trees across the street. I opened the camera feed again. Every window glowed. At 4:30 in the morning, movers were still inside. Lauren's mother stood in my bedroom doorway, hands on her hips, surveying it, like it had always been hers. Then she lifted my husband's framed photo. She set it face down against the wall. That small motion felt louder than shouting. Rain began tapping on the windshield, soft, steady. I whispered Daniel's name. Not angrily, just quietly. I remembered when he was 10. He fell from a tree and broke his arm. I slept in a hospital chair 3 nights straight, ate crackers from a vending machine, held his hand every time he winced. When his father died, He leaned against me like he was still that child. I held everything together. And now? He stood in my hallway while they labeled me guest. The word replayed in my mind. Guest. I drove to the hardware store at 6, bought 4 new deadbolts. The cashier asked if I needed help installing them. I smiled gently. No, I said. I've learned how. Back in the car, I sat still for a long time. The rain slowed. Sunlight began pushing through clouds. Inside my chest, the hurt remained. But it was organizing itself, becoming resolve. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to be precise. That morning, I called my attorney's office, left a message requesting urgent consultation. The receptionist called back quickly. There was one complication. My current will still listed Daniel as executor. If something happened suddenly, he would still control the estate. That detail landed heavily. It meant timing mattered. I scheduled the earliest possible appointment. Then I reserved a storage unit, gathered my deed, insurance papers, tax documents, printed every screenshot. Lauren measuring walls, her father marking tape lines, Daniel holding the clipboard. Every image time-stamped. I assembled everything into a binder, labeled it simply evidence. When I finally pulled into my driveway, it was just after 9. Neighbors were outside. Lauren's father stood near my mailbox, directing movers like he owned the property. Lauren saw me first, her face drained of color. You weren't supposed to be back, she said. Supposed, like I was predictable. Daniel stepped forward. Mum, let's go inside and talk. But I stayed on the lawn. I held up the binder. This is my house, I said calmly. Lauren leaned closer. Please don't embarrass us. Embarrass, not hurt, not betrayal, embarrassment. Neighbors slowed. I read the floor plan aloud, then the email about asking forgiveness later. My voice did not rise. The movers gradually stopped lifting boxes. Lauren's mother covered her mouth. Her father stared at the pavement. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. Reload the truck, I said gently. Lauren's voice cracked. Where will my parents go? I looked at her carefully. That was your decision. The truck doors slammed shut. The sound echoed down the street. Daniel finally looked at me. You're choosing a house over family? I met his gaze. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing respect. That afternoon, after they left, I walked through every room. Boxes slightly shifted, closets disturbed. Rain began again. I stood in my bedroom doorway. It looked the same. But I didn't. If you're still listening, thank you. Patience isn't weakness. It's quiet strength. That night, I lay in my own bed. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel confused. I felt certain. I began to think, very carefully. The next morning, I didn't rush. That surprised even me. I made coffee, used my favorite mug, sat at the kitchen table in silence. No shaking hands, no dramatic speeches in my head. Just clarity, the kind that only comes after humiliation burns itself out. They thought age made me weak. But age doesn't make you weak. It makes you observant. And I had been observing for years. I opened my notebook. At the top of the page, I wrote one sentence. They moved into my house while I was on vacation. I underlined it, not because I needed proof, but because I needed focus. Emotion clouds decisions. Facts sharpen them. At 10 a.m., I met with my attorney. A quiet woman named Margaret. Silver hair, sharp eyes. I handed her the binder. She flipped through it slowly. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Just turned pages. When she reached the floor plan labeled with my bedroom reassigned, she stopped. You did not consent to any of this? She asked. No. And they had keys? For emergencies. She nodded. That changes things. That sentence settled something inside me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was unlawful entry. But I wasn't interested in pressing charges. Not yet. I wanted correction, not chaos. Margaret leaned back in her chair. "Your will needs revision immediately," she said. I nodded. Daniel was still executor. Lauren was secondary beneficiary. That structure was built on trust. Trust that had now been broken. We restructured everything. The house would be placed in a living trust. A neutral third-party executor. Disbursements staggered over time. No lump sums, no quick liquidation. Margaret typed steadily. "Do you want to remove your son entirely?" she asked gently. I paused. That question carried weight. I closed my eyes for a moment. Daniel at 7 years old, building Lego towers on the living room rug. Daniel at 15, learning to drive in this very driveway. Daniel at 22, crying quietly at his father's funeral. I didn't want revenge against my son. I wanted accountability. "No," I said finally, "but there will be conditions." Margaret nodded. Respect-based clauses, behavioral requirements for access, financial transparency requirements. And one more thing. If I required assisted care in the future, it would be chosen by me, not by him. That detail felt important, because this wasn't just about property, it was about autonomy. After the meeting, I sat in my car for a long time. The sun reflected off the windshield. I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. I was steady. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's removing the ladder quietly and letting people realize they've been climbing air. That afternoon, I visited the bank, met with my financial advisor, reallocated accounts, restricted transfer privileges, closed the informal line of credit I had extended to Daniel years ago. He never knew it existed formally. He just knew I always said yes. Now the answer was no. Not cruel, just firm. That evening, Daniel called. I let it ring. He called again. I answered this time. "Mum, can we talk?" His voice was smaller now, not defensive, just tired. "We can," I said calmly. "But not about changing my mind." Silence. "I didn't think you'd go this far," he said. "I didn't think you would either," I replied. That landed. He exhaled slowly. Lauren had apparently blamed him for everything. Her parents were furious. There were arguments, tension, consequences. I didn't gloat. I just listened. Because this wasn't about punishment. It was about balance. "Daniel," I said finally, "you need to understand something. You don't move into someone's house without asking." "I know," he whispered. "No," I said softly. "You didn't." Long pause. "I thought once you saw how good it would be," he began. "That's the problem," I said gently. "You thought for me?" That silence stretched longer. I didn't rush to fill it. Let people sit in their choices. It's more powerful than shouting. He asked if we could meet. I agreed. Not at my house, not at his. Neutral ground, a quiet cafe. I chose the time carefully. Public, calm, controlled. Because when they moved into my house while I was on vacation, they thought I wouldn't fight back. They mistook quiet for surrender. But silence can build walls stronger than words. And I had built mine carefully. By the time I returned home that night, everything was legally secure, financially protected, structurally reinforced. I walked through my hallway slowly, touched the banister Daniel once slid down as a boy, paused at the kitchen doorway. The house felt different. Not because they had touched it, but because I had defended it. That changes something inside you, when you choose yourself. I turned off the lights one by one, locked the door, checked the new deadbolt. The stage was set. All I had to do was wait. We met 3 days later. A small cafe downtown, neutral ground, soft music playing, morning light through tall windows. I arrived early, Chose a table near the back, not hidden, just steady. Daniel walked in alone. Lauren did not come. That told me something. He looked older, not physically, just worn. He sat across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He stirred his coffee without drinking it. "I'm sorry," he said finally, not defensive, not rehearsed, just quiet. I watched his hands. They trembled slightly. "I believe you're sorry," I said calmly. His eyes lifted. Relief flickered there, but I didn't let it settle. Being sorry isn't the same as understanding. That landed heavier. He swallowed. "I thought we were helping," he said. "No," I replied gently. "You thought I wouldn't fight back." His jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. The truth, once spoken, doesn't need repeating. We sat in silence for a moment. The espresso machine hissed in the background. People laughed softly at another table. Life went on. "You changed everything," he said finally. "Yes. The will. The trust. The accounts. Yes." He looked down. "So I don't matter anymore?" That sentence carried the real fear. Not money. Not property. Relevance. "You matter," I said softly, "but access is earned." His eyes filled slightly. "I never saw you as weak," he whispered. I tilted my head. "Then why did you treat me that way?" Silence. Longer this time. That's the thing about quiet strength. It forces honesty. "I didn't want conflict with Lauren," he admitted. "It was easier to assume you'd adjust." There it was. Convenience. I nodded slowly. "When your father was dying," I said quietly, "conflict would have been easier too. But I stayed. I protected this house. I protected you." His breath caught. "I know." "No," I said gently. "You're just now beginning to." He wiped his eyes quickly. "Not dramatic, just human." "I've asked Lauren to apologize," he said. "That's between you and her," I replied. "Respect doesn't come through intermediaries." He nodded. He looked smaller now, less entitled, more reflective. "I don't want to lose you," he said. "You didn't lose me," I answered. "You lost access to control." "That distinction matters." He sat back. "Let that settle." "What do I do now?" he asked quietly, and for the first time. That question felt sincere. "You learn," I said. "You build your own stability. You stop relying on mine. No anger, no bitterness, just boundaries." "I will," he said. We sat there a little longer, not enemies, not fully healed either. Just two adults adjusting to truth. Before we stood, I reached into my bag. I slid a single envelope across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "A statement," I said. He opened it. Inside was the full financial ledger, every dollar documented. $61,320. He stared at it. "I didn't know it was that much." "I know. That's why I calculated it. Not for repayment, for awareness." He folded the paper slowly. "I'll pay you back," he said. I shook my head gently. "This isn't about repayment. It's about recognition." He nodded. That hurt him more than any demand would have. When we stood, he hugged me, carefully, like someone afraid to break something fragile. But I wasn't fragile anymore. I was steady. He walked out first, didn't look back. And I stayed seated for a moment, finished my coffee slowly. Outside, the sky was clear. The air felt lighter. I didn't feel victorious. I felt balanced. Sometimes the loudest moment in life is when you say nothing at all. And in that silence, I finally felt free. It's been 6 months now. The house is quiet again, but it feels different. Not empty, not fragile, just mine. Daniel and I speak occasionally. Short conversations, careful ones. There are no more emergency money requests, no casual assumptions, no unannounced visits. Respect has replaced convenience. And that matters more than reconciliation. Lauren sent a message once, a brief apology. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't poetic, but it was direct. I appreciated that. I didn't rush forgiveness. Forgiveness, like trust, moves slowly. I still sit on my back porch in the mornings, coffee in hand, watching sunlight move across the garden. Some days, I think about that first moment, when I opened the security camera feed, when I saw strangers walking through my hallway, when I saw my name assigned to the smallest room. That was the day everything changed. Not because they tried to take my house, but because I finally stopped letting people take pieces of me. They moved into my house while I was on vacation. That sentence used to sting. Now it feels like a turning point, a boundary drawn, a lesson learned. Age did not make me weak. It made me clear. Clear about what I deserve. Clear about what I will not tolerate. Clear about the difference between being loved and being used. For years, I thought being a good mother meant endless sacrifice. Now I know better. Being a good mother also means teaching your children consequences. Being generous does not require being erased. And being alone does not mean being lonely. Lonely is when you are surrounded by people who diminish you. Alone is when you are at peace with yourself. I sleep well now. That's how I measure justice. Not by who lost, not by who apologized, but by whether I can rest without resentment. And I can. If there is one thing I've learned, it's this. Respect, once lost, can be reclaimed if you wait for the right moment. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is close your own front door and keep the key. Would you have handled it differently if it were you? Tell me in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, stay with me for the next one.